Anglesey is a small island to the northwest tip of Wales, part of the ancient kingdom of Gwynedd. Christianity there can be traced right back to the Roman Empire. Following the conversion of the Emperor Constantine, Christianity became the official state religion around 320, so the British Isles officially became Christian at that point. Around 383, Magnus Maximus became emperor of the western part of the empire. His wife, Helen, came from Carnarvon, just over the water from Anglesey. The Romans had a fort there known as Saguntium, the remains of which can be visited. Helen was a follower of St. Martin of Tours and promoted his monastic ideals. So we can conclude that Christianity had supporters at the very highest level here from the 4th century. Helen's son, St. Peblig, continued the mission of his mother. The church near Saguntium takes its name from him. The Romans left the British Isles in the early 400s and, in northwest Wales, were succeeded by the Kingdom of Gwynedd, one of the oldest kingdoms in Europe. Its first king was called Gwynedd. It is likely that he served under the Romans when they were still there. His grandfather, Padon, commanded a legion under the Emperor Magnus Maximus. Padon's father, Tegid, was a bishop. King Gwynedd inherited the Christian faith of his forebears and passed it down to his descendants. So we can say that Gwynedd was the first Christian kingdom of the British Isles, long before the Roman mission to Kent in 597. The seat of the kings of Gwynedd was at Aberfraw, on the west coast of Anglesey. In the church at nearby Cadwallader, there is a memorial stone to King Cadmus, dating from the 7th century. The village takes its name from King Cadwallader, who erected the memorial to his grandfather Cadmus. Also nearby is the remarkable church of St. Gwynedd. The church may take its name from the St. Gwynedd who was a disciple of St. Bino in the 7th century, or the name may come from St. Kevin of Ireland. Due to erosion, the church became ever more engulfed by the sea, with the waves coming under the door during church services. In 1893, a wall was built around the church to preserve it. Another king who lived on Anglesey was Pabbo, pillar of the Britons. He had been driven out of his kingdom by the Picts in what is now the English-Scottish borderland. His daughter married the King of Gwynedd, Gwyn. The church on Anglesey, which takes his name, Llanbabbo, contains a fine engraving of him. Pabbo's son, St. Donald, founded the monastery at Bangor-on-Dee. Donald's son, St. Daniel, founded a church at Bangor City, which later became a cathedral. His son, St. Daniel the Younger, Daniel Fab, became a monk on Anglesey. Sadly, the church at Llandaniel, built on the site of his church, is in poor repair and up for sale. The nearby Iron Age burial site at Bryn Celyn Ddu is interesting, a reminder of what Christianity replaced. The island of Anglesey is separated from the Welsh mainland by the Menai Straits, across which there are two bridges. The oldest one is the Menai Bridge, the world's first iron suspension bridge, built in 1826 by Thomas Telford. Near the bridge is the tidal island of St. Tysilio. He was a prince of the nearby kingdom of Powys, who fled the royal court to a monastery. When they pursued him to try and make him king, he fled to Brittany, where he became known as St. Suliac. A few miles west along the Anglesey coast lies the old church of St. Nedan. He was a disciple of St. Kentigern, the patron saint of Glasgow, who spent time in North Wales in the 6th century. The old church is on the spot where St. Nedan lived as a monk. It now belongs to the family which owns the large house next door. In the 1840s, the church was considered too remote, and a new church of St. Nedan was built in a more accessible location inland. St. Nedan was the confessor at St. Cyriol's monastery at Penmon on the east coast of Anglesey. St. Cyriol was the great-grandson of King Gwynedd, who we mentioned earlier, and the nephew of King Cadwallon. In the 13th century, a new monastery was built on the site of the old one by the Augustinian order. The church there contains a cross from the 10th century with intricate patterns. The holy well which St. Cyriol used is still there, and well worth a visit. Seeking greater solitude, he later moved to Puffin Island, also known as Priestholm, and established a hermitage there. A monastery was built there in the 12th century. One can take a boat trip around the island, but not land on it. A few miles further west is Llandywyn Island. St. Dynwen lived in the 5th century, one of the 24 daughters of King Brican. She fell in love with a young man, but did not marry him. According to one source, she was banned from marrying him. According to another, although she loved the man, her love for God was still greater. Either way, she prayed to God to be released from the attachment, and he granted that she lived the rest of her life as a hermit. This was a very popular pilgrimage site until the shrine was destroyed by the Reformation. Finally, we should mention the Church of St. Patrick, Llanbadrig, on the north coast of Anglesey. It is thought that St. Patrick was shipwrecked on the cliffs here, en route from Scotland to Ireland, around 440, and sheltered in the cave here. He built a church to thank God for his rescue. The current church, which replaced it, dates from the 14th century. The Christian origins of Anglesey go right back to Roman times. As his emblem, King Cadwallad of Gwynedd even adopted the Roman red dragon, now the symbol of Wales. For such a small island, Anglesey boasts a large number of holy sites, preserved by the grace of God, so that we can make pilgrimages there to his saints.